Hey guys, it's Sam and I have a special video for you guys today. It's actually a review of dual tip artist markers from Studio Series. I've actually never heard of these people. This is completely not sponsored. I found these while randomly browsing through Barnes & Noble and I wanted to see how they compared with Copic markers. If you haven't already subscribed, I suggest that you do because these will be a part of my 3,000 subscriber giveaway. And if you happen to subscribe after that giveaway, I'm sorry. Feel free to subscribe anyway though, because I have a lot of art stuff, so if you like art stuff, you should subscribe. And if you guys want to see a much larger marker review, definitely check out my Patreon, as one of my goals is to do a very large Copic marker alternatives review video, like Bailey's but with different markers that she didn't cover. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out links in the description to my Patreon page. And yeah, enough about that, let's get started. I actually haven't opened these yet, so I'm eager to see how they compare. Alright, let's do this. So, I'm pretty sure the company is Studio Series. Dual tip artist markers, it comes with both brush and fine, which I don't think I've ever seen that before for alcoholic markers. It's either fine and broad or brush and broad. One of the tips is typically broad. I think I might have seen one other one, but yeah, very rare. So let's go ahead and take this tape off. I don't think I mentioned that it comes with 24, but if you didn't see it, it comes with 24 different colors. Now, according to the caps, a lot of these kind of look like midtones, so I'm a little concerned about the color, but the kit, like the little thing it comes in, is really cute. It comes with a blender, so technically one of them is a blender. But yeah, let's go ahead and take these out. I guess if I were to talk quickly about the casing that it's in, I do like that it's very clear. The number and name of the color is really clear on the end caps. It's printed on, there's not a sticker, so, you know, makes it seem a bit more professional. I don't like that I'm not seeing the color on the actual body of the marker, so I guess just be careful if you end up using these, that you don't want to accidentally put like 21 on 92 because they look really similar. All right, but let's look at the fine. Hopefully that's visible. Well, just from glancing at it, it looks nice. This one looks a bit shorter maybe than Copic's, but it's hard to really judge it. Oh, wait, there's a 7 on here. That has nothing to do with 92. I don't know why there's a 7. I don't even know if that's visible, but it says 7 under the cap. Do they all say 7? This one says 4. I don't know what that means. Cap comes on and off. Pretty nice, not bad. And they are not round. They're slightly square rounded. I mean, if I force it, it'll roll, but you know, like it's not super easy to get it to roll, so that's good. I'm gonna go ahead and make a color chart, and let's see how this works out. Okay, first try. The smell is actually kind of light. I think it's a tad lighter than Copic's. Oh, whoa. Okay, first impressions right off the bat. Wow, the tip is extremely soft. That really bent. It kind of like melted away on the paper when I touched the paper. And the color really bled out. I'm gonna open both caps just to make sure that it's not all floating on one side, because sometimes Copics have that happen with them. Alright, I guess maybe it was that marker, because this one's a bit stiffer. Some of these tips, I'm not sure if it's very easy to see, but it's a bit frayed at the end, and I feel like that would make getting precision lines very difficult, but I guess, you know, you have the fine end for that. So I think it gets it like a scratchier lay down because the tips are a bit frayed. Something that I don't like now that I'm using it is I can't tell easily which side is the brush end. Like, I'm looking closer at it now, there is a way you can tell. I don't know if this will show up on camera because it's so dark. There's a little extra gap between the fine end and the cap. I don't see that on the other brush side, and it looks pretty consistent with the other markers, so I think they did it on purpose. But it's really difficult to see, like if you're going fast, I do have to say, as a quick positive though, these colors look really pigmented. Like they're going on very even. I know I'm only doing little tiny square sections, but it feels pretty easy to get an even coat. And they look pretty like solid in terms of the color. The biggest annoyance is mostly the frayed tips. I don't see that on the fine. I only see it on the brush. So I'm not sure what that says about the quality of the brush tips, how long that they can last. Some are worse than others. This one, I mean, I don't know how obvious it is, but it's even like a little bent. That is a bright red. Wow. These colors are bright. I am noticing some inconsistency with how tough the brush nibs are. Some of them, like the purple from the very beginning, are like, and nothing has been as soft as that purple, but some of these are harder than others. This one was pretty hard. It's even got some discoloration. Randomly switching to letters for some reason. But here are all the colors except for the colorless blender, because I'm assuming that's just alcohol, if it's anything like the Copic one. Yeah, the selection in terms of just colors in general is pretty nice. Because, I mean, you only have 24 colors in this pack, and I think they spread it out rather nice. The biggest problem I'm seeing right now is what I suspected was a lot of the same, like, mid-tone values. Like, there's very few lights and very few, like, drastic darks. The caps are pretty similar. Here's just this group. Like, that's pretty close. I think they did a pretty good job in terms of matching the caps with the colors. And just in case you're curious, I'm using computer paper. It bleeds, I think, maybe a tad bit more than Copic's. Let me quick get a Copic to compare. Actually, laying down that Copic just now, they do bleed a bit more through computer paper. However, they also bring out more ink. I just laid this Copic marker down and the ink comes out rather slow. It's a bit more controlled. I think this one kind of bleeds out a tiny bit more. I think the ink just flowed a bit better out of this. I tried to pick a Copic marker I haven't used a lot, so there would be plenty of ink. Yeah, the ink definitely comes out more. But this one, I feel you have a bit more control. Like, it's really minor. Like, I don't even know if it's worth mentioning, but I figured I'd just say it just in case. It's not a make or break for either marker, really. I know y'all are interested in my coloring of the picture, but I do want to see how they work in blending with each other. So I'm going to go ahead and do that first, and then I will get to coloring the picture. Actually, I haven't tried the fine. Let me try fine first. It's kind of as you would expect. The tip bends just a tad if you add a bit of pressure to it, but it's not like you can't unbend it by just turning your hand in the marker and bending it the other way. The color seems to blend together pretty well. Like, it looks a bit streaky at first, and then it kind of melts together. Will it blend? That is the question. I don't know if it's obvious, but I am getting a little bit of splatter when I open these. There's one right there. There's some right here. That is not really blending. Let me try a different color, because that might be they're too different. I mean, it's kind of blending. The colors are a lot closer, so they work better together. I don't know if it's obvious on camera, but I mean, they're not like blending. They're kind of just melting together. Like, let me try using the actual blender and see if that does anything. Sometimes if I do this. Well, it definitely does something similar to the Copic, so lightens the color and it kind of pushes the color around. That's a little bit impressive that it pushes so well. Curious to see if Copic's colorless blender can push that well. Though by now I've refilled it with normal alcohol. Yeah, it's pretty close. I don't think it pushes as much. Granted, again, this is not the actual Copic alcohol that they put in the marker. I've refilled it with normal alcohol. So, I mean, results may vary, but I'm pretty sure that they all just use alcohol and are just taking your money. I'm really impressed, actually, with how well the ink comes out of these markers. Like, comparing it with Copic, the ink just doesn't come out as much. And I never noticed that before, because I always color in small pictures, but if you do big pictures, These ones would probably work out better in terms of filling in the space. But yeah, I think they eventually would be similar. The ink comes out like mad, and I think it spreads more on the computer paper. So if you use computer paper, just be aware that I think these guys spread more than these guys. So just when you're coloring, just be further away from the edge than you otherwise would have been coloring, and I think you'll be fine. And now that this is dried, it looks okay, but I don't think it's as smooth as Copic's. Whatever, let's get to see what you guys actually want to see, which is me coloring the picture. So there are definitely massive differences between this and Copic markers, and just keep in mind that the only markers I've ever used are Copics and Crayola, so this was pretty new to me to try a different company of alcoholic markers. I struggled quite a bit with blending, and I think that's just because I'm really new and have never used these markers before, and I've only been used to Copics, and Copics has a very particular way of blending and it works really well. And these markers, I really had to try different things. So when I first started coloring it, mostly when I got to the pants, I was like, maybe these are only good for cell shading, maybe this isn't good for soft stuff, which is what I like to do. But then the more and more I kept going with it, I was like, oh, I'm starting to get the hang of it, and it starts to make sense. So if I did like quite a few practice pictures with this, I think I could get the hang of them and use them very similarly with how I use Copic markers. It's definitely a lot of trial and error, so if you've used Copic markers before and you're considering buying these, definitely give them a chance. Now that I'm looking at the finished picture, now that I finished drawing it, I would definitely say that these are an actual alternative to Copic markers. The downside is that they don't have a lot of colors in the set. From what Google searching I have done, I haven't found any additional colors. So I don't know if maybe this is a brand new company just starting out or like just starting this product and they're testing the waters to see how well it sells, and maybe then they'll produce more markers. I haven't looked into it that much. I'm sure you guys can Google it real easily, but I've only found these 24, so it's a bit unfortunate that there's not a larger variety of different colors. But for the colors that they do offer in the 24 set, I think they did a good job in having a variety of different colors. Because, I mean, like with Copics, you can mix other families pretty easily, like purples with reds, or greens with blues, that kind of thing. They do bleed a lot though. Like, I can't get that across enough. They do bleed much more significantly than Copics do. So that I'm unfamiliar with, so a lot of the colors bled outside the lines of my own faults, because I'm used to Copics, I'm used to markers, of like how much that marker bleeds. I'm not used to this. So when I was coloring, my mind automatically went into Copic mode, and I was coloring much closer to the edge than I should have, and I caught myself several times and was able to fix it, but I had to use a white gel pen to color over the parts that went outside the lines. But once you get used to that, I definitely don't see that as a problem. I don't see that as a negative at all. Also, if you use marker paper, then you'll probably end up with better results and easier control, because I use computer paper, and computer paper is not for markers. I'm just really cheap. I did notice that lighter colors seem to push and pick up more color than if Copic markers do. So if you have a dark color and you put a light color on top of it, Copic markers, it does affect the color, it pushes it away and lightens it up, similar to how the alcoholic marker does. And it felt like when I was coloring his skin that it happened more and easier with these markers. So that was a little tricky to deal with and kind of get used to. But I am legitimately surprised as to how well these came out, and they're not that expensive. I purchased them from Barnes & Noble for $40. So with 24 markers, that's less than $2 a marker. That's about $1.60, $1.70 a marker. And if you purchase it from Amazon, I'm seeing prices as low as $32 with free shipping, which means it's as low as $1.30 per marker. So price-wise, it's totally ridiculously cheap. And for the quality that you get from these for that price, I am just dumbfounded. It was comfortable to hold, and I definitely got more used to it the more that I colored. The only negatives I have are really the brush tips and just how fuzzy they are. They're not like a clean swoop. They're a bit frayed. And the blending is also the biggest problem that I've noticed. So those two are the biggest negatives, is the fraying on the brush tip, which means I don't know how long they're going to last. And the blending was a bit more difficult than with Copics. And I think that's because just you have a limited variety, but even with Copics, I feel like you can get better blending with that. 24 of the same color Copics, I think you could blend a lot better than 24 of these markers. But looking at the end results, like what I managed to get from how little I worked on it, I think it blended pretty nice. It's just you really gotta get used to it. But if you've never purchased any Copic markers before, or you're thinking about purchasing Copic markers, but I don't know, for whatever reason, you are not sure what to get, if you should focus on Copics or if you should look into these, I'm thinking that, like, especially if you're young or a beginner, you should go with these. You cannot beat these prices. It's ridiculous. As a Copic user, I wouldn't use these myself. So if you use Copics right now, if you want to experiment, try something new, sure, go for it. It's cheap enough that it's fine. It's worth it. In terms of like, would I buy more of these? Probably not. I already have Copics. I'm already used to that style of coloring and using those markers. So for me, it's not worth it to purchase my own set. But if you've never used markers ever before, like when I was in high school and I purchased my first set of Copics, that was a huge mistake. I had no idea what I was doing, and I never used them for such a long time because I didn't know how, and it was kind of a waste. I wish these would have been available back then, because these would have been a perfect thing to use instead of Copics. It gives you like an early feel of what alcoholic markers feel like and how to use them. It's definitely a fantastic beginner set. Like, totally not sponsored, but I would really recommend these if you don't have any markers, if you don't have a lot of money, and if you just want to try out the medium or get into, work your way up to Copic markers if you want to go that far, or stick with these guys and maybe they'll make more colors. But I am really thoroughly impressed. The colors are pigmented, the fine point works great. I ended up using that for a lot of this drawing just because it's so small, so if you draw big, this is great for that. The positives totally outweigh the negatives, and I would have recommended this to the younger me to purchase. So final bit of advice, if you do end up buying these markers, make a ton of scrap pages of scrap artwork and just kind of get used to the feel before you do any serious drawings. Computer paper totally works, you just gotta get used to it. Yeah, so that's about it for this review. Hopefully it was helpful for you guys. Again, if you'd like to win these markers, I'm giving them away once I reach 3,000 subscribers. And if you'd like to see one big marker review video, definitely check out my Patreon page, linked in the description down below. Thanks for watching. Bye!